Israel will take any measures in order to destroy Hamas. But we have no intention to stay permanently in Gaza Strip. We only take care of our security and the security of our citizens alongside the borders with Gaza and elsewhere.
The issue of phosphorus activated in Lebanon. We are operating in one clear way, legally and according to international law. This is how we operate. This is how we exert force in both in north and in the south. And this is how we will continue to operate. Since the renewal of fighting, the IDF and the ISA arrested some 140 terrorists of Hamas and the Islamic Jihad across the Strip. In the last month alone, there was a total of over 500 terrorists arrested. Over half of them were taken for further investigation in Israeli territory. We are investigating the terrorists in the field and they tell about hideouts of other terrorists, as well as provide significant intelligence to create new targets further in the fighting. This investigation takes place on the ground in real time as terrorists surrender.
מהנקז דרומה לאזורים שבהם אזרחים יכולים לשהות.
So just want to understand, given the flow of weapons transfers to Israel, is it the U.S. assessment that its weapons provided to Israel are not being used in any of the situations that I've just read out loud and are described in this policy?
So I will say that our expectation of every country to whom we provide military assistance, weapons and other assistance, is that they use that assistance in full compliance with international humanitarian law and the laws of war, and Israel is no exception.
Artillery shells to support to Ukraine.
I just don't have any comment on that. I'll let South Korea speak to its own decisions. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Just if you have any reaction to the Washington Post report that Israel used white phosphorus on civilians in southern Lebanon. And then a second question, you mentioned earlier in the press conference that Secretary Blinken referenced the killing of Issam Abdullah, and yet just Friday or Saturday, was it, you fast-tracked 13,000 of the same shells that killed him. So is there like an incongruity to what the department is doing and saying?
Let me speak to the first question first, which is that we are concerned by the reports of the use of white phosphorus. Obviously, there is a legitimate military use for white phosphorus, but that does not include using them on civilians. It means that if you use them, you have to do everything you can to minimize civilian harm. Anytime that we provide items like white phosphorus or really anything to another military, we do it with the expectation that it will be used for legitimate purposes and in full keeping with international humanitarian law and the law of armed conflict. So we're looking into this and looking for additional information. And then with respect to your first question, you heard the Secretary speak to this yesterday. If any of you were up early on a Sunday or early-ish, you would have heard him speak to this and make clear that, look, Israel is engaged in a very difficult military campaign against a terrorist organization that says it wants to repeat the attacks of October 7th. He decided that with respect to this sale, this was a munition that they needed on an urgent basis, and so it necessitated an emergency authorization to provide those munitions. But that does not in any way lessen their obligation to act in full compliance with international humanitarian law.
Does the State Department have any comment on this? Do you think it's appropriate for such images to be taken? Do you agree with the Israeli assessment that these were Hamas fighters, given there are people who are saying these are normal civilians, family members?
So those images we found those images deeply disturbing, and we are seeking more information both about the nature of the images and, of course, why they're public in the first place.
Is President Biden now willing to defund this terrorist UN organization, UNRWA?
And with that, we'll wrap for today. Thanks, everyone.